Hi, remember me? It's been a while since I've done anything like a Friday sews or a sewing vlog style sewing video, but I just happened to catch Frugalissima's latest video and it's 5 questions, no edits. And I thought this would be really fun to do, so I thought I'd jump on and do it real quick. So the idea is to answer 5 sewing questions or their specific questions with no editing and maybe a few photos. And so I'm going to jump in and just start. The first question is, what has your sewing journey looked like? When did you start sewing? Who taught you? Any breaks, etc. So I think most people know my sewing journey if you've watched me a bit. And I was interviewed by Love to Sew podcast, so I kind of go into detail on it. But basically, I was left with no alternative elections in high school, and I had to learn. So I had to take the sewing class. And I was kind of a brat about it. I am not proud of how I acted about it. I didn't want to. And I ended up really, like, it really clicked for me. The whole spatial side of how things go together and thinking about garments inside out. That was really easy for me. And how things kind of functioned in sewing. And my sewing wasn't good by any means. My sewing was terrible. I had all the same, beginner issues everybody has. I fought with the machine because they were school sewing machines, all that. But I understood how things went together really easily. And I had that kind of engineer's brain. I really wish someone at the time would have told me, hey, engineering might be a great path for you, but they didn't tell young women things like that in the 80s. And so I went to fashion school, which was, weirdly, if they're not going to encourage you to go to engineering school, going to fashion school is a very big disappointment, I would say, or a big hesitation that my family had when they heard that that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do it for the engineering side of it, for pattern drafting, and so I did. And so beyond that, I've always sewn. I've always managed to stay in the sewing industry, whether I've been employed as a designer and pattern drafter or doing it freelance. I think the biggest break, if you want to call it that, would be when I worked on a farm in Colorado a few times. But I even did it on the side because I was so broke and I had no money. And so I would hem people's pants for a jar of juice or similar, because food and treats were my currency because I didn't make any money. And I figured it was so much easier to get someone to pay me with a jar of real juice, which wasn't cheap, instead of money. And so, for some reason, that's easier for people to pay for a skill, right? Don't get me started on that. So I think that's kind of the biggest break I had. Even when I became a mom, it was hard, but I went back to being freelance, and then I had my own line of accessories and a factory where we sewed everything. And now here I am live streaming, which came about in kind of a not intentional way, and not a way that I'm happy with just because of life circumstances. But I'm really happy I'm doing it. Don't get me wrong about that. I just didn't plan on this being my main thing. And I wasn't really ready to shut the doors of that business. But I had to, even though it was going really good. So that's a whole other thing. And if you know me, you know about that. So, okay. I don't want to sound all melancholy or anything. I love doing this. So, all right, number 2. Describe your sewing space. Where it is shared or private, messy, clean, etc. Currently, I rent an office, a very generic office in a generic building in a town that was decimated by a fire. So there isn't actually very many places here to rent. And it's about 5 miles from my house. And my house has satellite internet, really terrible internet. So I'm renting here because of the internet. One of the good things about the rebuilding that's happening here, which is very slow, is that there's fiber internet up here that's very easy to get and it's very cheap. So that's one good thing that's come out of that, because they didn't always have good internet up here. And so I have a office that costs me a little over $300 a month for the space. And so the outside area is actually shared, and it is kind of interesting sometimes. I don't talk a whole lot about it. It would be kind of fun too. Currently, there's only one other person that's here regularly, an architect, and they're awesome. They're really cool to talk to and stuff like that. So there's like a shared kitchen area and everything like that. But my sewing area doesn't really spill out into there, but the streaming can impact people because I want it quiet. I never have to ask anyone to be quiet, but I shut my door. But usually I just have my door cracked, and so people could walk in and see me in here. And sometimes people are kind of looky-loos, They're like, "Hi, who are you? What are you doing?" So there's that. But I actually haven't had a sewing room at home for a long time, mainly because it's been my main gig, and it was really good for me to get it out of the house because I needed work to be at work and home to be at home. And if you're a small business or a big business, or you have any kind of entrepreneurial thing going on in your life, sometimes you got to make that kind of happen, because I'm one of those people that would work 20 hours a day. I love what I do, and I think about how every weekend I look forward to the weekend, and every Monday I look forward to Monday, and I think how lucky I am for that. So I'm just really fortunate that that's worked out. And yeah, I guess that doesn't really talk about my sewing space too much, but I do have a video tour of my sewing space, and it's really detailed. But it's less of a sewing room and more of a live streaming and sewing room combo. So it's not set up exactly how I would want it if I was just sewing in here and you weren't here, but it is still highly functional. I'm very interested in functional, minimal movements to do things. I'm very organized, but it does get really messy every single day, and every day I clean it up. The floor is not vacuumed every day, but the surfaces are left tidy for the most part, and I have to manage a lot of projects simultaneously in different stages because of the stream. So it's a lot of work sometimes. I always think if I miss a week of work, which never happens, I'd come back and be like, whoa, where am I at with all this stuff? Because there's so many things, lots of balls in the air all the time. I have 2 computers. One's at home now. I just moved it at home, and I really like it there, except for the internet problem. So it does leave me a little bit more room over here that I might change some things in here. We'll see. I don't know. It's a very, very tight space. I want to say I have about 250 square feet. It's pretty small. I know that's really huge. Don't get me wrong. I know that's really huge for a lot of folks, but I have a lot in here. And when you've been doing this since you were 15 years old, it's pretty miraculous that it's only 250 square feet, right? And I've had lots of different setups, and I just made all of them work somehow, because some of them were better than others. So, all right, let's see. What is it like to be a sewing YouTuber? Does it meet your expectations? Is it how you thought it would be? Reaction from others, etc. Oh, I wish I would have paid attention more how Sam answered this. Let's see. I never thought I'd be doing this. I don't even know where to start. People would probably be really shocked to think that I'm not an extrovert. I'm not an extrovert. I am very good with people, and I'm really good at breaking the ice and making conversation with people. But just the idea, it makes me really nervous, and my nervous habit is to talk. So I'm not attention seeking, even though I think when you have a YouTube channel, you think, oh, they must like a lot of attention or to be the center of attention. And I don't feel that way at all. In fact, if I'm in a meeting or something like that, like as a parent, when I would have to go to things like that, I just would almost pass out if I had a question. I had to raise my hand, or if I had to say something, I would be blushing bright red. I'm right now blushing a little bit, and I blush like that, like no problem. Just thinking about it, I'll blush. So it's really hard for me on that level, but at the same time, there's a lot of introverts and people who are like that who live stream. And there is something about the separation that makes it a lot easier, and it's a really nice way for us introverts to be able to interact with the world and share some of our skills, because honestly, like, I don't know if you've seen the studies, introverts are really what make the world tick, and extroverts are getting all the attention for it, the money for it, you name it. Like, it's really fascinating, and I don't say that with any grudge at all. I find it actually really interesting. I feel like it's why I always was such a great pattern drafter, and even though I'm a really good designer, I really liked doing the pattern drafting bit, which was definitely the unsung craft of the design process, you know? So it's kind of like always a backup singer, never the lead, you know? And I'm fine with that. I like making things happen, you know? So, and I think that's what drew me to live streaming, is that I got so much value out of learning from other people's live streams. And I loved the fact that people could ask a question live and get an answer right then, you know? The idea of someone sitting in their sewing room crying because they're frustrated or something, I've been there, and that is definitely something that tugs at my heartstrings. And so I really like the idea of there being someone there that you can talk to, and other people that can be there with you. And sewing can be a pretty isolated sport, right? Because knitting you can actually bring around with you. Sewing isn't so portable. And you know, being on YouTube, I like YouTube because it's so universally accessible. I will admit I'm pretty much 95% of the live streams I watch are on Twitch because the platform is better. But the people like you and I don't really go to that platform looking for sewing content. So that's why I picked YouTube. And I really like it, except that I find the navigation really clunky. Sorry, YouTube, but it's really clunky, and it's not really set up for keeping folks around in one spot. So it's kind of weird that way. I think the one question people always want to ask and don't, unless they're strangers. Strangers ask me this, but nobody I know asks me this, is how do you make a lot of money as a YouTuber? And honestly, no. I think my ad revenue is about $200 a month on average. One month it got up to like a little over 250, and it didn't break 100 until this year. So you can't do this for the money. You can't do it like the affiliate links and all that stuff. That is pennies. Like, it's literally like a couple dollars here and there. And I'm totally transparent about this stuff because I feel like it's my viewers who really keep me going. And so I'm not doing this for money. I don't have to make a salary. It would be really helpful to my family if I were making income right now, but I'm just in this really weird area where I can't get a job doing what I'm doing, and my husband's job is right now the paramount job in our family. So I can't really uproot us to do something. Not to mention being my age, it doesn't matter that I have more skills than almost anybody I know in this like little circle. And I'm sorry, that sounds like I'm bragging, but it you know, it's just like my age and the breadth of things I've done. It doesn't, I don't think at my age I can get hired very easily. Plus, I'm not up to speed maybe on the latest CAD program or whatever. So I'm just really honest about that. But I would love to be a part of a team. I love being on a team, and I would love to be part of a team one day again. So I hope that happens. But right now, I figure this is such a great way for me to give back to the sewing world, to help people and just empower them. And I'm such a huge proponent of domestic manufacturing, keeping things made in my own country, and wherever you live, maybe the same thing. So I feel like if I can help people that maybe want to start their own line or have their own small line that they're trying to sew and sell, if I can kind of help them with that, I think that's great, because I would like to, you know, bring back some manufacturing to our country and make it more, you know, more normal, because I feel like since sewing is a skill, the skill is very devalued. We don't look at auto mechanics as you know, like that it's not a skill, right? Why don't sewists get the same kind of, you know, now I wish I could edit this because I could get rid of all these uhs, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that, sewing is a very devalued skill, and it's a skill. It's literally a skill, right? So, all right. I don't think I answered everything about the YouTuber thing. Does it meet my expectations? Yes. I mean, yeah, the money thing, no. I mean, I don't really think anyone's really honest about that, but I will be, and it's not much. There's the it doesn't really matter how many subscribers you have. It matters how many views you have, and how many people are watching the ads on your channel. So, isn't how you thought it would be. Reaction from others. No one really talks to me about this. I did hear Sam's response about this, and it's the same for me. I would love to be able to talk about this all the time. I love talking business. I love talking about this kind of thing. And if no one really wants to talk about it, and I think it's probably because they think it's in that attention-seeking vein, so I just don't tend to bring it up, and I don't really interact a whole lot with people one-on-one, so I don't really have the opportunity anyway, so that's fine. It's not like I'm wearing a t-shirt that says streamer, by the way, walking around town. So, all right. Describe your most memorable project. Oh, shoot. I wish I would have studied for this test. I feel like I've shared this before. Like, the thing that leaps out at me is always when I use sewing as a solution to something that's maybe not sewing related. Like making the roofs for my movable chicken pins out of a waterproof fabric. That was so genius because it was lightweight and we could still move these heavy pins, these chicken pins, and it was in a really rainy climate. And so that was kind of cool. But I think the thing, funnily, that stands out for me is making this mummy costume for my little girl. A few of the things I made are definitely for her that stand out. And this one, I remember she came home from preschool and she had wanted to be a purple fairy for Halloween. She was in preschool, so this is her age. Right now she's 18, almost 19. And she wanted to be a purple fairy originally, and I was like, okay, but I had learned at this point to wait till the last second to make the Halloween costume because she changes her mind. Even if I would say, hey, are you going to change your mind? You're going to change your mind. Asking a 4-year-old or 3-year-old if they're going to change your mind, it's like, you might as well try and, count grains of sand or something. So I one day was driving home her from preschool and she's like, Mama, I want to be a mommy wrapped in toilet paper from Egypt. And I was like, huh? Looking at my rearview mirror, what do you mean? I want to be a mommy wrapped in toilet paper from Egypt. And I was like, but what about a purple fairy? And I had literally just that day finally made the costume. Like, we're talking like very soon before Halloween. And it's easy for you to say, oh, you shouldn't just make another. You just give it to him. You don't have kids. I'm just going to say it. And it's Halloween, right? So she wanted to be a mummy. And here's the problem with me. This is one of my biggest faults. If someone presents an idea, especially if it's a problem and it's at all sewing related, my mind instantly grabs onto it and starts thinking about how would I do that? And I think that's the pattern drafter and engineer inside of me. And it's a big problem because sometimes it makes me hair off in different directions. Sometimes I just have to see, is this possible, And so I know the classic thing to think of making a mummy costume would be, oh, you just rip lots of fabric and wrap it around it. The logistics of that are so kind of, frustrating if you're wearing an outfit where you're wrapped in toilet paper. And we're talking about a potty training kid, right? So that's not going to happen. So what I did, and I wish I had it here. I just saw this video idea like a half hour ago, so I don't have the little mummy costume here, the mommy costume from Egypt here, but I did save it. It's one of the only things I've saved. So what I did real quickly, because this is actually a really good costume idea, I did rip strips of muslin, very cheap fabric, right? That's not much. I took a plain shirt front and cut that out of a solid piece of fabric, like not strips or anything, just one piece of fabric. And then I laid each layer of the strips and, I sewed one down and I laid the next one on, sewed one down, and kind of built it going up so that you didn't see the stitch line. So it looked like ripped layers of muslin. And then I made a back like that, and I made sleeves like that. And then I sewed these units together, and I matched the strips of muslin as if they were stripes. And so from like a little bit of a distance, it did look like she was wrapped like this, but she actually could move her arms. And I didn't have to hem. I ended up making a Velcro closure to get in and out at the center back. So it looked like a mummy. She looked like a mummy. I did this with the pants as well. And she looked like a mummy from a movie. Like she could walk around, and do the whole thing. And it was freaking adorable. And it's one of my most proudest sewing moments ever. Yeah, I've made wedding dresses. I've made things that are top secret. I've made things that save people's lives. Lots of things I've made that save people's lives. I've done technical motocross gear. I've done all that. I won an award for helping women and sports wear with a certain style of garment. But that mummy costume, the mommy costume from Egypt, that's my one. So, all right, last question. What is one quote or saying or piece of advice you've gotten that resonates with your sewing or YouTube success? Let's see. I don't think I've gotten quotes. I think I'm the one that's kind of the type of person that gives out quotes. I tend to be a motivator. And I think like I'll maybe talk about this in line with sewing success, because I don't consider myself like a YouTube success. I feel I'm YouTube content, and I'm happy, with that. So like being success on YouTube, you've got to figure out what you think is a success, because I think like if you want to do it, then try it out, but it is a lot of work, so I know everyone's probably going to say that who answers that question. But my quotes, I have two quotes that I would share with anyone sewing and doing anything, and that is, one of them is chip away at it. If you have any type of task, small or big, chip away at it, especially if you're a new parent and you suddenly have this vacuum of no time for yourself. Chipping away at something, that has been one of the best things I've ever done, because it made my work better. I stopped rushing through things. It was really hard for me to do that, but it was a good thing for me. And it also, just bite-sized chunks is a lot easier and manageable. So my other thing I say, especially in regards to sewing, is you're the boss of your project. I remember the day my sewing started to drastically improve. I was, I think, 25 years old. Yeah, I'm going to say I was 25, because I remember where I was living. I started working at this really fantastic fabric store. I had relocated to this area where I was going to study environmental engineering. I had already gone to fashion school and worked in the garment industry, but I didn't like the garment industry. The garment industry is very, very tough industry. It's not pretty at all. Environmentally, it's awful. The people at the time were pretty intense, and I'm sure they still are. And I moved away, and I went to go back to school, and it was kind of one of my plans I had thought about doing. And so I got a job at a hardware store, and then when I had applied at a fabric store and didn't get the job, and then when she looked my resume over, she was like, "Hey, leave that hardware store." I'd worked there 2 weeks, and I went and worked there. And she was a very good seamstress, as was everybody who worked there. There were only like 2 other people. And I wanted to get better. And I just remember one day sewing something and, at home, and I was just like, no, I don't accept this. That's not what I wanted to happen when I did that seam. So I took it out, and I just kept trying it, and I was like, I'm in charge here. I am not accepting anything but what I want to come out of this machine. And that is kind of how I am. I definitely am one of those people that doesn't like dreading things, like anything from changing the oil in my car, and the idea of going somewhere I've never been before and asking someone to do that, to going through child labor. Like, I'm one of those people, I'm like, I'm just going to get it over with. I'm just like, bring it on. I got to do it because I hate dreading things. And that is kind of in line with that feeling where I'm just like, no, I'm not accepting this. And my sewing started to get a lot better because, you know why? Because my hands started working harder for me. I started making sure I was holding the fabric correctly and giving it every chance. And then looking at, like, okay, where is the needle landing? Why is it landing there? Why does it keep pushing to the left? Why does it keep pushing to the right? Why isn't it going where I'm asking it to? And just looking at the physics of it and the thicknesses of things. Maybe this thread type isn't the right one. Maybe if I tighten up the tension, maybe if I loosen the tension, maybe if I try some lining. I just got very determined to have success, and that has carried with me to this day. That's what I say. You're the boss. So if you're having frustration, I have it all the time too. And sometimes I'm like, no, I am the boss here. And sometimes, if you know me at all, you know that we believe in the sewing fairy around here, and she can be pretty, troublesome. And so I, have to sometimes make a little offering to the sewing fairy, but then I'm back in control. So that would be my that would be my advice to you. Don't settle. And yes, you are going to have machines that don't cooperate. You're going to have frustrating workspaces. You're going to be tired. You're going to have fabric that you just want to pull your hair out. And those things are temporary. So just get through it. And then you start getting better and better at picking things that you like to sew. Even if you really love that frustrating fabric, if you don't want to sit there and spend the time to figure out how to sew it, then get something that makes you happy, because we don't do this because it's cheaper. So that would be one thing I would say. All right, how long is this video? It's 26 minutes long. All right, so I'm going to get going. But I'm going to tag Kim Gaddy Sews and Mainly Menswear. And I'm going to challenge them. They don't have to do it. It's just, I wanted to come up with a couple people that I know are posting occasionally. And I'm going to tag those two, and maybe they can do these 5 questions with no editing. So it was really nice to see you. Stop by, say hi, and let me know the answers to any of these questions. And if you want to participate, please do. This is open to anybody and everybody. I just saw her video, so I thought I'd jump in because it looked fun to do. So. And I could talk forever about, like, the YouTube thing, so stop by sometime and ask. All right. Happy sewing. You're the boss. Remember, don't forget. Who's the boss? You're the boss.